To vegan beer or not to vegan beer? That is the question. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to find out once and for all, should you be opting for that vegan alternative or not when it comes to your craft beer. Now, before we get into this, it is probably worth noting that beer in its most simple form is perfectly vegan friendly. It is all just plant-based matter after all, but for a long time there was an aspect of brewing history that made beers, well, not very vegan at all. I am of course talking about the use of isinglass, which is basically the swim bladder of a particular type of fish used to make beer clear. Now, clear beer is something that, well, up until kind of the 2000s was the norm. Every beer was pretty much crystal clear. It didn't matter whether it was a dark stout or a super light hoppy pale. Yeah, everything was pretty much absolutely crystal clear. And in the most part, that was due to this isinglass addition. It wasn't in the beer, it was just left in the beer. It cleaned it up and they took it out and served the beer. However, in recent years, due to, well, a lot more people being vegan, they stopped that practice. However, making regular beer vegan friendly these days is so popular, in fact, I had every intention of whipping out this bottle here of Samuel Smith's, the old school Yorkshire Brewers chocolate stout, and saying to you, look, even this has got a vegan thing on the back of it, and they're doing the thing. But then I was going to bring out, something very mass produced and say, look, these guys still aren't. And despite my best efforts, I've got a Guinness West Indies Porter here, and I've even been through my whole fridge, and as it turns out, I couldn't find a single non-vegan friendly beer, with the exception of those that contain lactose. Now, lactose, as many of you will know, is a milk byproduct that basically, when used in beer, gives it a nice sweet flavour along with a bit of extra body feel and just a general creaminess, really. And milk stouts are still very popular, and I for one am a massive fan of them. However, one of the, I guess, pretty consistent craft milk stouts these days is from BREW, the Tonkoko milk stout, 4.3%. It's nothing too special, but it is a solid everyday milk stout. And thanks to BREW, we get to do this test because they have now released this. It's the vegan-friendly Tonkoko milk stout. So basically today we're going to kick these side by side to find out, well, which one's better, the vegan friendly one or the original. Of course, for this we'll be using equal glassware as well. These are the same glasses, just with different print on the outside. And let's get these pouring. So just for my future reference, the Vocation glass is going to have the original, and then this, I think this was Derby BeerCon last year's glass, is going to have the vegan version. Bit lively, that one. And much the same on the vegan version. So then, regular on my right, your left here in the Vocation glass, and then vegan one here in the other. Visually, I mean, I'll be honest, that wasn't the greatest beer pour ever. It's not looking too hot in either glass, let's be honest. It's looking a bit of a mess. It's a bit, I don't know, yeah, very oddly aerated bubbles almost. But visually, I can tell no difference, which shouldn't be a lot of surprise. Lactose doesn't give any real kind of colour depth to the beer anyway. But yeah, otherwise, pretty much spot on. Let's find out about the aromas. I mean, the original is exactly what I remember from BREW's Tonkoko Stout. It's got sweet toffee notes with a few butterscotch vibes and a nice big roasty malt base to it. And the vegan one, alarmingly, that smells very different. Like that is, let me shake this around a bit just to make sure it's not just me, but the vegan one smells sweeter. It is, the butterscotch is intensified and it's much more weighing in on that side of the argument. It's much sweeter, much more fudgy, confectionery, that kind of thing. The original, it's got more raw beer bitterness about it. It's, well, I'll be honest, I was hoping to be able to sit here and go, you know what, they taste pretty much the same, so go whichever you feel the most comfortable with. But they are wildly different on aroma. So, I mean, wildly different for what is meant to be the same beer. Percentage-wise, these are both exactly the same, 4.3%. We'll take a look at the cans later, but it's time to give them a try, I think. So, original first. Cheers, everyone. I have to say, this is a great stout to do this test with because it's 4.3%. It's not big, it's not heavy, but the milk, the lactose quality in this milk stout does give it a superb, slick, premium feel to this beer. Flavour-wise, touches of sweetness, touches of toffee, buttermilk, fudge, really very mellow. A lot of vanilla in there. The Tonkoko is named after the tonka bean. Tonka beans are kind of like amped up vanilla, in some ways a bit more coffee vibe maybe, which is coming through. But the strong roasty aroma isn't as intense on the flavour. Back end, it's a bit smoother than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, based off the aroma, there's something quite charging about the aroma. But actually, now it's settled down, I actually think that's some of the potency from the tonka bean itself rather than the malt. It's a charming beer. It maybe isn't the most exciting out there, but at the same time, to be honest, it's a pretty damn reliable one. Okay, vegan beer time. That aroma is still so sweet. It's super butterscotch. It's like, yeah, almost like melted down Werther's Originals, and oh, just anyway, it does smell good, but very, very different. Cheers. Interesting. Okay. Alarmingly different. Again, well, maybe not alarmingly different, but let's just run through it, shall we? So, the original beer has quite a roasty, intense aroma that leads into actually quite a slick, soft, creamy, slightly sweet, slightly roasty flavour that all in all is very well balanced and very enjoyable. On the switch side though, the vegan beer, well again, really sweet aroma, not a lot of backbone on the aroma, it's all just kind of little sweet spritzy notes, very much kind of, yeah, like it's going to be a milkshake kind of a beer. However, once you get into actually drinking it, it's got a sweet front to it that's, well, just somehow not as balanced as the original. I think there's something in that lactose that just helps it carry across the front of the tongue, maybe helps the flavours transverse across the taste buds a bit better, and ultimately just leads to a slightly better balanced experience. And then the back end on this is really surprising because it's a bit more drying. It's actually a bit more intensive. There's a bit more licorice coming through, a bit more raw stout notes. This is, yeah, quite interesting indeed. I am going to top both of these glasses up and then we'll have a quick read at the back of the cans to see if there's meant to be any difference or whether these should actually taste pretty much the same. Okay, I mean, the front of them is almost identical with the exception of the vegan-friendly beer wrap around the top of the vegan can. Switching it round onto the back. Oh, interesting, they give this a coconut rating. Tonkoko? I thought it was tonka bean. They're meant to be coconut? Anyway, we'll get into that. So, interestingly, they think that the original is slightly stronger on the coconut front. Let's do a little side-by-side on the ingredients. The original has water, barley, wheat, coconut, oats, lactose, cacao nib, hops, tonka beans, vanilla and yeast. Whereas on the vegan one, it's got water, barley, wheat, coconut, oats, maltodextrin, cacao nib, hops, tonka beans, vanilla and yeast. So they're the same except the lactose has been replaced with maltodextrin, and that's quite interesting because, well, you would expect them to be pretty much identical. I guess they might have had to have adapted the recipe slightly because the lactose will bring a degree of flavour and sweetness to it that maybe the maltodextrin doesn't. But then again, I don't know that much about maltodextrin, so maybe it does. Maybe it's more. Maybe it's sweeter. Maybe that explains that intense aroma on the vegan version. That, well, I say intense, just the intense sweetness. It's honestly a bit more synthetic. The vegan one here feels like a, should we say, an adjunct beer for the sake of an adjunct beer. You know, think about the cheap stuff you get in the discount supermarket, little craft beer festival events that they put on. You can often get stouts in there that promise big, you know, big marshmallowy flavours or whatever. and actually the end result is something a bit, well, overly sweet and just khaki, just eh. Whereas the original on this, whilst it is undoubtedly an adjunct beer, yeah, just feels a bit more considered, a bit more concise, and well, a bit more natural actually. It's just got this. It feels like it all blends together. There is, I don't know if it's because I've just read the backs or not, but the vegan one does feel like it's got a bit of a chemical additive that, well, yeah, I just personally don't really want in my beer. That said, if we ignore that element, it isn't a bad beer as such. It just has hallmarks that I associate with other bad beers. If you've never experienced any of those bad beers, actually, you're probably in for an alright time. However, as you've probably guessed by now, me personally, I'm taking the real deal because it is just that much better. So there you go then. Vegan beer versus non-vegan beer. Well, that vegan beer is mighty impressive to say, but it's just not quite as good as the real thing. And that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you will be so kind. And I'll catch you next time. Cheers.